Hey, what's up guys, it's BenBonk, and welcome back to the 13th Slimekeep Devlog. So in this devlog, I worked on a corruption/day system and refined things like boss fights and the slime pet. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first thing I actually did was not Slimekeep related, but I started messing around with this new asset I got called Paak that was inside of a Unity Humble bundle that I got. I found this asset really cool, and it basically changes how you can interact with Unity's editor windows. It also has a bunch of neat features such as editing components from the inspector inside the scene view, quickly creating game objects, mass replacing game objects, and more. And this asset may not be the most useful in Slimekeep, but I could definitely see it helping a ton with level design in other games. But now let's get into actual Slimekeep development. First up, I wanted to start working on the day/corruption system, so I started doing just this, though very quickly I ran into some problems. Pretty much, I still had the problem where I couldn't access any of my regular scripts inside of my procedural generation scripts. I'd always wonder why this happened, so I decided to look into it, and after some digging around, I found out that the issue was that the scripts were in different assemblies. After reading through the Unity docs, I quickly realized that solving this problem might not be as simple as I thought. Pretty much, assemblies are ways of organizing code, and they work in an acyclic manner, which basically meant my life for the next few days was going to be very painful. I was pretty stuck on what to do, so I decided to email the procedural generator asset creator himself because I figured he would know more about the asset than I did. And after some discussing, he recommended that I copy the scripts I needed to use and put them in my standard scripts folder. This would then allow me to access any script from the asset scripts because changing it where a script is located can change its assembly. Another thing that I was doing was directly editing the asset scripts, which means if I want to receive a future update on the asset, it can replace all the changes I made and prevent me from receiving future updates on the asset. So lesson learned, don't do that. And I want to give a huge shout out to Andre, the asset creator, for being super nice and helping me through this process. Now all I had to do is copy a bunch of scripts, make tons of changes to them, and create a new functional scene. After so many hours of work and many bumps in the process, I managed to create a scene that would generate successfully, though wouldn't actually function. Back to work I was, and a few hours later I got the doors closing, though no enemies spawning. Again, more work, and now we have enemies spawning, and the scene was almost back to normal. Though, one thing I noticed was that some things like the shop for example were still very messed up, so I got that fixed, and now the game was pretty much back to normal. It took a lot of work, though I'm really glad I pounced on this earlier than later. But before I continue on with the video, I would like to thank the sponsor of this video, Core. Core is a new free game creation platform that allows you to build, publish, and play games. If you're just starting out with game development, Core is a great choice and allows you to quickly create your own games, and is especially useful if you want to set up a 3D multiplayer game. And the best part is, you don't even need to know how to code, so you can get started making games instantly with their thousands of free, high quality music, sound, and art assets, with no coding required. But if you'd like to go deeper, feel free to create your own game logic in Lua. You can build games completely from scratch or remix and reimagine content from other Core users. And when you're ready to publish, your game will go live on the Core platform, all with the click of a button. Core also handles all the hassle involved with multiplayer networking for you. Core also recently announced their Student Game Dev Hackathon Jam with $10,000 in prizes, so if you're currently a student, make sure to check that out. So feel free to check out Core. It's completely free, so you can head over to coregames.com or visit them by clicking my link in the description. Finally, I could actually start working on the day system. I first set up a loading screen that would show when the level is being generated, along with the player's current day. I also made this button that would allow the player to move on to the next day, just for testing purposes. This wasn't actually doing anything yet, but just changing the day variable. Now all I had to do was start working on the corruption, but I wasn't sure how I should implement it, so I came up with this idea. It was that I could create a bunch of level graphs, which are basically templates for levels if you didn't know, and inside of those level graphs I could create different rooms with different difficulties. Then depending on the day, I could randomly select a level graph from many level graphs of the same difficulty, and these level graphs would have different room types in them, like difficulty 1 through 5, which would randomly choose rooms from a list to put in the level. Basically, a level graph on day 1 might have a bunch of difficulty 1 rooms, but as the days progress, the level graphs will have harder rooms. It's kind of hard to explain now, but I hope it'll make more sense later. Also, for this solution, I was going to have to change the way I go about spawning enemies. Previously, I had enemies spawning randomly when you enter a room, but for this solution, I was going to have enemies instead already be inside the rooms, and just whenever you enter that room, the enemies will become active, and they'll spawn in the same location every time you enter that same room prefab. I thought that this could possibly increase the feeling of mastering the game and mastering the rooms, and just be better for game design, so that's why I chose it. I also came up with another idea of having a corruption value that the player has, and depending on the value, harder enemies will spawn using my old enemy spawning system, but I personally thought the first option was better, and so did my Discord server, so I went with that. First up, I started work on creating this new enemy spawning system. Surprisingly, it was extremely easy to create and only took a few minutes to get up and running. All I really did was create a list of enemies that I could assign an inspector in a room prefab. Then when I entered an enemy room, I would just cycle through that list and make the enemies active. And as you can see, it ended up working pretty well, and I can now traverse through the level with this new enemy spawning system. Now it was time to get working on creating these different types of rooms with different difficulties. This actually took a ton more editing of the new procedural generation code to allow for me to create different room types. But after a long time, I got it set up so I create different room types with different difficulties. These room types also have an array of possible rooms that they can spawn, so if the level graph wants to create a difficulty 1 room type, I can just assign some really easy room prefabs in that array, so that's how I can manage difficulty. Now I needed a way to progress through these levels, and actually use different level graphs depending on the day. I figured a good way to do this was to start working on the inside of the house, which I planned to have it where this is where the player would return after a long day of fighting slimes, and where the player could end his day. My original plan was to have the house inside be in a separate scene and use Don't Destroy Unload to pass objects through scenes. I spent a while on this approach, and unfortunately I just couldn't get it working, and there were tons of problems. So I instead opted for a different approach where I just have the house inside live inside of the game scene and just set it to active whenever my player walks through the door. So I started working on this, and one script later, the house inside area was working. It was surprisingly easy to set up, as all I really did was set the game object to active and disabled the house collider. Unfortunately, there were still some glitches, most of them that I patched up, but there are still a few small ones that I have to address when I actually make the art for the house inside. Now it's time to work on the bed. I made this bed that was represented by this slimy boy, and got it so when you press them, it'll take you to the next day. There's a lot of work that I did behind the scenes that I forgot to record, but massive thanks to Byron of course again for helping me get the level switching with the new level graphs working. I just made an array that would store all the possible level graphs in a day and randomly select one when that day is loaded. I also added this small effect that would make it seem like you're actually in the house. With that done, I figured I'd get back to working on boss fights, as in the last video I made some decent progress on getting them set up, but there's still quite a bit to do. The first thing that I set up was detecting when the player entered the boss room, and I just froze the player in place when this happened. Then some more work later, I got the boss intro screen set up, which doesn't have anything on it yet, but I plan to show some of the boss's name and what they look like. I also got the boss spawning after the animation is over, and got the health bar to be active. Then I needed to set up what would happen when the boss dies, so I created a new function, and now the boss's health bar will disappear. I also added doors that would spawn in to keep the player from leaving, though I think I'll try to change up the doors in the future to be more unique. The final thing that I worked on this devlog was the slime pet. Currently, the slime pet is still super glitchy and messed up. A change I ended up making was removing the teleport, as a lot of people mentioned they didn't like it, and I also realized that it was causing more problems than it was solving. Though I still needed a way for the pet to get past the doors, so I thought an easy solution would be remove the slime pet's collision collider. I like this idea because the slime pit was also really annoying and would sometimes get in the player's way and bump into the player, which I didn't like, and made the slime pit feel way more clunky. So I got to work, and this took way longer than I might have thought because I had to change around the way that the slime pit attacks, though in the end, as you can see, the slime pit can just walk right over walls. I thought this looked weird, but I still liked the idea, so I messed around with the door layers and colliders and created this. I'm pretty happy with it, and it makes it look like the pet is just sliding under the door. Though I might need an animation to go alongside this, but I still think it's a good start. And I also made it so the player can kind of hide behind these doors. Well, that's all I really have to say for this devlog. If you guys liked the video, it'd be really great if you subscribe, as we're getting so close to 10k subscribers. Also, if you liked the video, a like would be massively appreciated, as that helps out the channel. And make sure to check out Quora using my link in the description. Also, sorry if this video is a bit shorter. Unfortunately, I forgot to record a lot of this time-lapse footage, so I might have been missing that, so I kind of skipped over a lot of things. But yeah, that's really all I have to say for now, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.